While the conflict in Ukraine is still very much active, we might be about to witness another major conflict, and this one would be much larger, affecting the global population. The recent visit by U.S. Speaker Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan is seen by China as an intrusion into its plan of reclaiming Taiwan, and China has issued warnings to the U.S. and even threatened to respond with force. So what's all this really about? Let's find out. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi landed in Taiwan on Tuesday night, August 2nd, 2022, and now the world is waiting to see how China will react. In reference to Taiwan, which China sees as its territory, President Xi Jinping warned U.S. President Joe Biden during a phone call last week that anyone who plays with fire will get burnt. The Foreign Ministry spokesman, Zhao Lijiang, also said on Monday that the People's Liberation Army won't sit idly by if Pelosi becomes the highest-ranking American politician to visit Taiwan in 25 years. In response to this, John F. Kirby, a National Security Council spokesman, speaking to reporters, said that there isn't any reason for Beijing to turn a potential visit that is constituent with a long-standing U.S. policy into some sort of crisis or conflict, or to use it as a pretext to increase aggressive military activity in or around the Taiwan Strait. But Beijing made it clear that it was unconvinced. Zhao Lijiang, a foreign ministry spokesman, said that China would like to tell the United States that they are standing by and that the Chinese People's Liberation Army will never sit idly by. He also said that China will take resolute responses and strong countermeasures to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Tensions between China and the United States have risen as China regards Taiwan as a breakaway province that would eventually fall under Beijing's control. Taiwan, on the other hand, regards itself as an independent country with its own constitution and democratically elected officials. The recent visit to Taiwan by U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi is considered as an incursion into China's plan and is not warmly appreciated in Beijing. The People's Liberation Army announced plans for extensive joint air and naval drills and long-range live-fire shooting exercises in 6 large areas around Taiwan on Tuesday night, which will extend into the country's territorial waters and airspace near Kaohsiung and Keelung, the country's largest and third largest ports. The drills will be held by the PLA from Thursday to Sunday after Pelosi has left. The drills, according to Taiwan's defense ministry, violate Taiwan's territory and contiguous waters and airspace, and have jeopardized international shipping and aircraft routes. 100 miles or so separate the island of Taiwan from the coast of southeast China. So, Taiwan sits in the so-called First Island Chain, which comprises a number of U.S.-friendly nations that are also essential to U.S. foreign policy. Some Western scholars have said that if China were to take over Taiwan, it could be freer to project power throughout the Western Pacific and might even pose a danger to U.S. military bases as far away as Guam and Hawaii. China, though, has claimed that its goals are only peaceful ones. The United States has been engaging in a delicate balancing act between Taiwan and China. The U.S. has been balancing between Taiwan and China in a cautious manner. The One China policy that Washington upholds recognizes Beijing, but permits informal relationships and defense cooperation with Taipei. The U.S. gives armaments to Taiwan, and they are by far the largest arms supplier to Taiwan. The U.S. also maintains strategic ambiguity regarding the extent to which it will be prepared to protect Taiwan from Chinese invasion. Tensions between the United States and China appear to have risen recently. Now, in May, China conducted the second greatest intrusion into Taiwan's air defense zone in 2022, with Taipei claiming 30 jets, including more than 20 fighters, entering the territory. U.S. President Joe Biden expressed concern about China's behavior and stated that the U.S. would intervene militarily if Taiwan was invaded. But why is Taiwan so important to the rest of the world? Taiwan's economy is extremely significant as Taiwanese computer chips power much of the world's common electronic equipment, including computers, watches, and game consoles. According to one metric, a single Taiwanese manufacturer, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, controls more than half of the global market. TSMC is a foundry, or a corporation that manufactures chips created by consumers and military consumers. It is a massive industry valued at about $100 million in 2021. A Chinese takeover in Taiwan might give Beijing access to one of the world's most vital industries. This alone is a massive reason why the U.S. won't stand by and watch China take over Taiwan. Before Nancy Pelosi flew over to Taiwan, there were reports that China was planning some kind of hostile response. Not an outright attack on Taiwan or an attempt to intercept Mrs. Pelosi's plane, as some fear, but an assertion of military power that may go beyond even the most aggressive encounters in recent months. Some pointed to the 1995 and 1996 Taiwan Strait crisis, in which China fired missiles to frighten the self-governing island, and President Bill Clinton dispatched aircraft carriers into the area. Analysts believe a similar confrontation today would be even more dangerous because the People's Liberation Army is significantly more powerful than it was back then, armed with missiles capable of taking out ships. Even if no battle is intended, an unintentional encounter could quickly spin out of control. This is an extremely dangerous position, probably even more so than Ukraine, with imminent and significant escalation dangers. Mr. Kirby did not disclose whether American intelligence services had detected any actual indications of Chinese activity at the White House, but he was unusually explicit in sketching the probable responses that the U.S. expected. White House officials privately expressed fear that Mrs. Pelosi's visit would set off a hazardous cycle of escalation in Asia at a time when Washington is already preoccupied with assisting Ukraine in its struggle against Russia's invasion. Much of America's military-industrial complex is occupied with arming Ukraine, which may hamper efforts to increase arms exports to Taiwan. He seemed particularly determined to persuade Beijing that any visit by Mrs. Pelosi should not be interpreted as a new provocation by the U.S., given that she would not be the first speaker to visit Taiwan. Speaker Newt Gingrich visited Taiwan in 1997. Mr. Kirby also stated repeatedly that the U.S. maintained its one China policy of not recognizing Taiwan's independence. Neither she nor Biden want to provoke a war that will cause even more economic damage at home, and their phone call last week indicated that they were planning their first face-to-face encounter as leaders in the coming months. However, the bellicose rhetoric and growing antipathy in both countries put even more pressure on Xi to respond forcefully, especially as he prepares for a twice-a-decade party gathering later this year where he is anticipated to clinch a third term in office. While the United States terminated its mutual defense treaty with Taiwan in 1979, China must consider the prospect of American military involvement. Biden stated in May that the U.S. would defend Taiwan against any Chinese attack, though the White House emphasized that he meant the U.S. would send military weapons in accordance with current agreements. During Nancy Pelosi's meeting with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen, she pledged an ironclad U.S. commitment to Taiwan. She said, "Today, our delegation came to Taiwan to make unequivocally clear we are not going to abandon Taiwan." The remarks by the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, made at a meeting with Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen, encouraged Taiwanese looking for firmer support from Washington, but threatened to escalate tensions with China. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has left Taiwan now and is headed to South Korea as part of her tour of Asia. Everything seems calm now. However, it remains to be seen how China will react in the coming days. What's your thoughts on this situation? Let us know in the comments section.